What is up? I am Magic. He is Aaron Halterman, and he is Jared Welch. Welcome to a special Breeders' Cup pre-entries edition of Blinkers Off. Gentlemen, how are we today?
You're taking over today, Magic, right?
This feels weird. Doing the, letting the blinkers off, kick off, and not, being the opening. I kind of like this gig. This is nice.
We're coming at you guys with the pre-entries instant reaction. We're got a lot of horses here to talk about. Some surprising names, some names going to races that we didn't expect to be their second preference or first preference. A lot to get into, but I'm excited about it. I know you guys are as well. Aaron, you're rocking the Cleveland Browns jersey, so hopefully your opinions will be better than your taste in football teams.
Well, listen, I've got two NFL teams, and they're both 5-2, and it's probably the first time in years either one of them have been 5-2. So I feel great about the NFL season. I mean, this is fun, right? I've been a lifelong Browns fan for the last 3 years, and so it's been rough the last couple, but not as rough as it used to be, and definitely this year it's been fun.
Yeah, can't quite replicate Jared's Chiefs success so far, but you can always dream about it, right?
That's right. No, the Chiefs have had a long history of losing as well, so he definitely can enjoy what's happening now with him.
That's the thing I get. So it's so funny when people give me shit, because it's like, I don't even feel bad. You don't even understand the shit I've been through with this team. Like, I mean, we've seen it all, and we finally are good. And so I'm going to freaking enjoy it.
As you should. Well, we have a lot of horses, a lot of races to talk about, gentlemen. Let's get right into things. I'm going to kick things off here. We're going to look first at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint Race. 24 total pre-entries here. 8 of them have made this their second preference. Both of those numbers are the most of any single race we're going to talk about. Wesley Ward is the defending championship trainer. He has 10 pre-entries, including 5 as a second preference. 3 Europeans coming over for European-based trainers. Wesley Ward also has Campanelle, who's been racing overseas, coming in here. Both prior editions were 1 gate to wire, including last year with last year with 4-wheel drive, and now Wesley Ward has Golden Pal among his many entries here. Aaron, first, your thoughts, please.
Well, I think when this race was formed a couple of years ago, Wesley Ward was the first trainer that popped in everybody's mind, because this just fits what he does to a T. You look at his 2-year-olds at Royal Ascot, and the success he's had there, the success with 2-year-olds in general on the turf. This is his specialty, and he won it last year. And he's got the heavy favorite again, and a horse that'll just be really tough to beat in Golden Pal. I just mentioned Ascot. Well, this horse almost broke his maiden in a stakes race at Ascot. Just barely got nipped, and then comes back to Saratoga and dominates last time out. He's obviously the one to look at. Early Speed has won this race the first 2 years, and with Golden Pal, I think there's a good shot it's going to happen again.
Yeah, I'm going to reference the trends a lot. The 14 trends that we just pushed out earlier this week. Go check it out. You can download it for free at the racingdudes.com on the products page. But like you said, this is a very this race has only happened twice in both years. We saw gate to wire winners, Bulletin and 4-wheel drive. Both went gate to wire. They both took a lot of money. They're both based in the United States. I feel like Golden Pal, there's a lot of things that set up perfectly for this horse in this position. And then I think sometimes you kind of have a mix there with the international flavor, because he has ran internationally. So I think he's going to be awful tough. And, the trends, the way that this race has gone in the past, certainly look to fit him pretty well.
These juvenile turf races in general they're going to all be overdrawn. And I think that's a trend that we've, at least in my few years of following racing, that we've seen quite a bit, because you have so many European horses coming over. And even this year, when we've had COVID, it screwed up everybody's racing schedules. We're not seeing as many European horses coming in as usual, but still 24 total pre-entries, and 16 of those made this their first preference. Some people's hearts are going to get broken. It's just a matter of trying to figure out which ones those are going to be. And we'll probably find those out early next week.
One thing I will say that's kind of interesting, when they first formed this race, I thought, man, we're going to see some long shots. And Jared just mentioned it, and you can read about it on the trends. Favorites the first 2 times. And really, guys, last year, 4-wheel drive, that seemed like a lock, right? Like, I don't think anybody was surprised that he won. Bulletin the first year at Churchill Downs, a favorite, but you could have went a lot of different ways. I'm not saying it was a surprise that he won. I picked him as a matter of fact, but still, very lukewarm favorite. Where 4-wheel drive was a big time favorite, and I think we're going to get it again with Golden Pal. So how interesting would it be with this race if we get 3 straight favorites to open off kind of the 3 years that it's been running at the Breeders' Cup?
It reminds me a little bit of last year in the sense that Wesley Ward had Kamari, a really top filly turf sprinter, going up against 4-wheel drive, and you're seeing this year, Campanelle, this is her second preference behind the Juvenile Fillies turf, but you have Amanzi Ampilo, who won the Speakeasy at Santa Anita. She's coming in here. So a good mixture of girls and boys usually in these races. Do either one of you really care that much at this point if it's the girls versus the boys, or do you just look at who's the best horse this early in their career and go there?
I think sometimes it's almost easier. I mean, I don't want to the juvenile races are very tough, but sometimes it does make it a little easier for you because the juveniles you can kind of start to tell the ones that are really kind of maturing earlier than the rest. And you can kind of get a good vibe and a good feel for some of these horses. It's like 4-wheel drive. You're just like, that horse is just better. You can just look at that and be like, that horse is better. You look at a horse like Golden Pal, and it's like, that horse just seems to be standing out. And so sometimes when you look at these juvenile races, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit with the actual juvenile, these horses, these 2-year-olds, when it gets later in the game, when they turn 3 and of course into the Kentucky Derby trail for those, it gets a little more cloudy because then they start to develop late and whatnot. But early on, I feel like when you have a standout, it's a little bit easier to kind of see that.
Yeah, boys, girls, doesn't really matter. I think maturity is what matters in these races, as Jared pointed out. If there was a really, really good 2-year-old filly in this race, sure. I mean, I don't think you should let that bother you whatsoever. But these 2-year-olds, and even maybe less so in the races around 2 turns, where there's a little bit deeper of a field as far as quality is concerned. But, in a race like this, it's who's matured and who's coming into the race, just looking to be kind of that 8th grader that's ahead of everybody else at this time.
Yeah.
We have several divisions on the Breeders' Cup slate over the weekend that are going to have the girls and the boys. This is the only one on Future Stars Friday. We'll continue talking about the boys. We'll look at the Juvenile Turf presented by Coolmore America. 23 total pre-entries in this race. Just 2 have this as their second preference. 7 Europeans are expected to come over, including Aidan O'Brien's Battleground. You also have the Royal Ascot winner, the Learjet. And Jared, you and I are on the same page here. We're both going to reference the trends because the Europeans love this race, don't they?
Yeah, they have. With this race, it's kind of funny with the Juvenile Turf. It's like how it's not been run a ton of times, but in the 10 times, it's 13 total, 10 times that the European-based horses have dominated. That's 77% clip. That's about as high as you're going to get when it comes to these Breeders' Cup turf races. So to me, you feel like if you kind of tend to focus on the Euros coming in. I think you can't, if it happens 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 5 or something, but when you're talking 10 plus races and they won 10 of the 13, seems like it's trending that way. Now I will say this: Americans have won this race twice in the last 4 years, Structure and Oscar Performance. So I mean, maybe it's trending a little bit more, but with Structure, I think you have to find the way that you can kind of feel a little bit better about picking an American horse. I think you need to feel confident that, it's not going to it's going to take more than an average horse, I guess let's say American average horse to beat these Euros.
So there's 2 factors I'm going to use for this race. And the first thing is, Jared just hit on it. Is there an American horse that's really good? And I'm very iffy that there is, but I think a huge factor you're going to have to take into this Breeders' Cup, especially with the juveniles coming in from overseas. What exactly are we getting in a year of COVID where everything has been bottled up, messed up? You really got to do your homework on these Europeans this year and really dig in and decide, are we getting the types that usually come over here for this race? I'm skeptical that we are. This race, I was very excited about to see the pre-entries. And to be completely honest, as soon as the show is over, I'm diving in to these European horses. I know the American horses that are here. I've seen them. I've handicapped them. I've watch them run. These Europeans, I haven't. So that is going to be a big job of all of ours that are handicapping. Let's dive through the European horses, and let's make sure that we're not just picking one because of the trend. Because when trends seem to get kind of broken is when other factors come into play that screw everything up of what the usual is. This has been far from the usual. Now, tomorrow, when I've done all my research, I might be able to come back and say, hey, you know what? I found a couple that are really good, and that 10 for 13 is going to look a hell of a lot better. So that's the big key here. We're going to dive into these Europeans, and we're going to try to find out if they're any good or not, frankly.
I know, Aaron, you're over at racenews.com right now. You're doing weekly early Breeders' Cup picks. And before knowing the Europeans for sure who was coming over, you had Mutasabek by Todd Pletcher as your pick for this race. I think he does look as strong as any of the Americans we have here. But I would be curious to see, once you dive into the Europeans, if you still hold the belief that this is the best horse. Jared, are there any Americans that stand out to you?
That to me is the one. Like Halter and I talked a lot about that horse whenever he made that turf switch, and man, he looked awesome. And so, yeah, I think from an American standpoint, that's, I think Gretzky the Great is kind of showed maybe not that great at times. To me, I'm looking more at the Pletcher horse if I'm betting American. But I'm going through this race sticking with the trends, and I'm going to try to, like Halterman said a little bit, like I'm first looking at Battleground, and then I'm looking at Learjet, and I'm finding my European horse, and if I go through those and I can't find the one that really stands out to me as far as feeling confident, then that's where I will land on most likely the Pletcher runner here.
Aaron, what about you? Is Mutasabek still looking like the best American chance right now?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's very important, especially again with juveniles, that you have that win over the track there at Keeneland. And I thought that was very important. Also, sometimes when these horses debut and you watch them, it's just like, yeah, I love that horse. And I loved him from the very start at Saratoga. I texted you guys as soon as that race was over. I said, that's a really, really nice horse. Now, little did I know turf was going to be the future, at least the immediate future. I kind of was looking at a juvenile horse, a regular juvenile on the dirt horse, and here on the turf. But I love the race at Keeneland in the Bourbon. I thought he was fantastic, and yeah, I think he is. Listen, I think Gretzky's a pretty nice horse too, but I'm kind of with Jared with the fact that I don't know if he's this level, and I don't know that he's been tested to this level yet. But yeah, again, got to look through the Europeans and make that decision. And that'll be one of the bigger decisions on this Friday card is going to come in this race.
It's kind of looking at this race as far as the Euros go, and while the trends do gear towards the Euros, you look at like last year. You remember Arizona was a very highly talked about Euro coming over and did not run great. I think finished 4th or 5th. Line of Duty won it 2 years ago, but that was not the favorite of that race. That was this other Euro. Anthony Van Dyke was the favorite that year. And so, I think you have to, Mendelssohn was a favorite, but it was a soft favorite that year whenever he won. But, I think whenever you're looking at these Euros, don't be afraid to not pick the favorite.
We'll talk about the Juvenile Fillies next. This is a race where it's going to be a little hard to play against the favorite just because there are only 8 horses who even pre-entered in this one. They all made this their first preference, so we're expecting, as long as they all stay healthy, they will show up here. But this is the smallest of the 14 Breeders' Cup races as far as pre-entries go. And Jared, from the 14 trends, favorites have won just one of the last 8 races, 3 of the last 11. Songbird was the last to do it in 2015. Songbird having a stakes named after her on the undercard on Friday, which is wonderful. Right now overseas, Princess Nora for Bob Baffert is trading as the 7-5 big favorite here. Kenny McPeak's got 2 coming in that were the first and second place finishers in the Alcibiades Stakes. Thoughtfully from Steve Asmussen, also going to try and show up here. Jared, I'll go to you first. This is a small field, so it's a little harder to find value here. Looking at the pre-entries, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting. And of course, let's not be ignorant to what's going on. I think the Bob Baffert kind of scenario is going to be interesting as we get closer to to the actual 2 days of the Breeders' Cup and kind of how people are going to perceive the horses that he has in these races, and do you trust them, and what that betting wise is going to look like. I'm assuming he's allowed to run his horses, but I honestly, I think we have an opportunity. Now, listen, we talked a little bit about this with John on Blinkers Off last week. Princess Noor is interesting and kind of gives you a reason to play against, considering the record that these favorites have in this race, plus the fact that these buyers have been so incredibly low for her. And I think it gives you, now she could be a freak and she could go out and win, and then you could be like, well, she's just really good. But I think you have an opportunity here to, because there's some good ones in here. Crazy Beautiful, Day of the Office, Simply Ravishing, Vaquist, Thoughtfully for Asmussen. There's some horses in here that aren't bad that, if they could upset her for sure. So I think it's one of those that, it's a small field, but I could see a handful of these horses winning.
So, yeah, I've been waiting to talk about this all day. I'm almost just been bursting. I haven't replied much to the big Racing Dudes text chain talking about Baffert, because I just wanted to save it for the show. And, I just want to say something before I talk about the race here. Poor Bob. I mean, he's guy's just so unlucky, right? I mean, he's just the most unlucky person of all time. You think about accidentally having all these positives in all these states. I mean, California and Kentucky and Arkansas. The guy, I mean, has there ever been a more unlucky person than Bob Baffert? I mean, poor groom who supposedly was working during COVID. That's safe to begin with. I'm glad making sure that his workers are safe and not spreading COVID around. It's not like there's a pandemic in the country right now. But anyway, so he shows up to work, and the guy takes some cough syrup, and now we have positive tests. I mean, it's just awful. I just feel terrible for Bob. So anyway, it's a real bad problem now, because you have no idea what Baffert is putting in the bodies of these horses that are coming over for the Breeders' Cup. And, that's going to probably be the determining factor on his horses. So to me, any race he's in is a real challenge at this point. I've got to take Princess Noor for face value right now at this time. Unbelievable workout at Santa Anita. I think the horse is capable of running faster numbers than what we've seen. So I think that's a good thing. And, I've kind of come full circle with her. I know, Magic, you thought this was going to be the Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, or Juvenile Fillies winner, as soon as you saw her, and maybe even before, after the hype you got. And usually a Bob Baffert hype horse doesn't falter. So I'm kind of almost leaning towards her now. But listen, I think this race, you got to go deep. There's only 8 horses in it, but I would, like Jared, I'll echo your thoughts a little bit. I think there's 5, 6, 7 that could even win. I mean, you may go all here if you can find a single somewhere else, which hopefully we keep. I think you're going to want a lot, because
you'll be able to single. And let me pull up the race order here, but I think you should be able to single in the Juvenile, right? So. So then if you can single in the Juvenile, let's put it that way, then all of a sudden you're looking at, because the race order here is, you have the Juvenile Fillies, the Juvenile Fillies Turf, and then the Juvenile is the last 3 races. So if you can go deep in the Fillies Turf we talked about, and then if you can single you almost have to kind of lean, right? Either you're kind of leaning heavy on Princess Noor and you're going to try to beat the favorite in the Juvenile, or vice versa, because I feel like it's hard to go deep in all those, plus have to deal with the Fillies Turf.
Yeah, I think that it's going to come down to, I think going all is great, because I actually think that Princess Secret, who nobody's even talking about, Florida bred, won the last 2 legs of the Florida bred Juvenile Triple Crown Series. I think she's got a strong chance. And this is a race where sometimes you have horses like Caledonia Road, another Florida bred, that come in and they surprise at a price. And then oftentimes the winner of this race, you don't see them that much longer. So we'll see what happens with this race. Not much more to take apart. We'll move on to the Juvenile Fillies Turf race for this one. Much bigger field than what we had for the last one, boys. We have 19 total pre-entries. 2 of them made this as their second preference. Ironically, both of those second preference horses, they're the Kenny McPeak runners we just talked about in the last race. You have 5 Europeans, Aidan O'Brien bringing Snowfall and Mother Earth over. Roger Varian also has Nazuna, who's getting a lot of steam. I think my favorite named horse of the entire weekend is Jessica Harrington's horse, Oud Nadada. I can't wait until this horse wins. And then on the Magic Mike show, I can have Mike Samich spend 5 minutes trying to figure out how to pronounce her name. Aaron, the Americans have won 10 of the last 12 runnings here. So all those Euros I just named, you can probably just chuck them, right?
Yeah, so a couple of things just real quick. You talked about Princess Secret.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. The first Breeders' Cup that Jared and I attended, a Florida bred by the name of Awesome Feather, won the Juvenile Fillies. That was in 2010, the year Zenyatta lost to Blame. And the horse came in, was running just in Florida on a 5-race win streak. Went up there in that Juvenile and won Juvenile Fillies. So that was very impressive. Awesome Feather. I'll never forget that. So to go on to this race, though, you're right. And it's very strange how the trend is the exact opposite for the Fillies turf. I've never really understood it. One theory I've always kind of had is Chad Brown is just really good, and he's won a lot of these with horses. But you know, I'm really liking Aunt Pearl. You talk about a race where I think you can go short. This might be the one. I think this Brad Cox trained filly is really, really good. And I think Brad Cox is getting ready to have a massive Breeders' Cup, and this might be the one that kicks it off for him. We'll talk about him a little bit more in the Juvenile coming up, but I really love Aunt Pearl for Brad Cox here.
Yep. I mean, like you say, this is one of those kind of rare occurrences in the Breeders' Cup that Americans dominate the turf race. And 10 of the last 12, it just seems like one of those races that, for whatever reason, the juveniles have fared better that are based out of the United States. And it's hard to fault Aunt Pearl for anything. I mean, Aunt Pearl has looked really freaking good. And I think she might be one of the kind of, I don't want to say safer bets, because what is safe in the Juvenile series on Friday, but she might be awful tough to beat. I mean, she obviously won last time out at Keeneland as well. So, lots to like here for Brad Cox. And like you say, I mean, just you talk about a dude that's had a hell of a year already, but I mean, this could be a huge Breeders' Cup for him because he's got several runners.
Well, Brad Cox reminds me of one of those trainers that I first heard our friend Ryan Stillman say this phrase, that there are people who just put horses into races, and then there are horsemen who actually aim for things. And Brad Cox seems to fire his best shots at the biggest races. You can think about Preakness weekend, Kentucky Derby weekend, Brad Cox horses that just seem to come out in full force and run really strongly. An interesting thing about Aunt Pearl, she's not a horse that has to be on the front end. You saw how she won the Jessamine, but it was just a matter of Florent Giroux said when she broke out, she just went right there and he didn't fight her. And I think that's a big key as well, that this horse has got the tactical speed that if you see someone like a Campanelle who is used to sprinting, if they run off, Aunt Pearl can be right behind and try and pounce. So were there any other, I know you guys both love Aunt Pearl. Were there any other Americans or Euros that might have caught your eye here?
Yeah, the thing about it is for me, and I definitely am going to go back through these hard, but as far as American horses go, I just like Aunt Pearl so much that I just haven't wavered off of her. There are a couple for sure, but I just really like her. As far as Europeans, and again, I'll have to, that's the thing, that's going to be a big job. Just like the Juvenile turf, that's going to be a big job to research those and get them ready and make that final decision. I would say the big difference is the trends obviously go towards American win in this race. That's definitely one. And number two, I think Aunt Pearl is a superstar type. I don't think we have a superstar type on the male side of things. So it's going to take if I'm going to pick a European, it's going to take a very impressive one. Jared,
any other horses that caught your eye initially?
I think I'm a little bit on the fence with Alda. I think this horse definitely didn't run awful last time out, getting beat by Lady Spikespeare. Definitely made a late rally. Grand Motion. You could see this horse making a run late in this race, maybe with a little bit of a price. This horse was pretty well thought of prior to that, going into that one. Of course, running at Belmont, and then the last two, at Woodbine, and of course getting second in a Grade 1 at Natalma. Nothing terrible there, going a mile on the turf like we'll see here. So I think Alda has a shot as far as a little bit bigger price, especially considering that Pearl will be heavily bet, but it's going to be hard. We talked about how you got to find singles, and going thin here with Aunt Pearl, it makes it, that's tough not to do, really.
Well, we'll talk about a race that I know Aaron thinks could be a deadlock with a single. We'll look at the TVG Juvenile presented by the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. 15 total pre-entries, all with this as their first preference. A couple things caught my eyes, guys. Bob Baffert and Kenny McPeak, they're both wheeling back very recent winners here. Bob Baffert nominating Classier after he just broke his maiden on debut very nicely at Santa Anita. Kenny McPeak had the Stars of Tomorrow one-card winners Camp Hope, a maiden special weight, and King Fury, who won the Street Sense Stakes. They're both pre-entered as well here. Aaron, the horse that you love is going to be the favorite as long as he makes the gate, but only 2 of the last 9 winners were favored. That was Game Winner and Shanghai Bobby, although the last 5 winners did go on in the Kentucky Derby. So talk about your big top pick here in the Juvenile.
Yeah, it's very scary to go short here for sure, but I just think Jackie's Warrior has shown he is a tremendous racehorse. And he talked about maturity levels. I think he is just more advanced at this stage than anything else I've seen. A horse that, and I'll credit John White, if you haven't listened to the podcast last week, John, I kind of mentioned, hey, I think Jackie's Warrior's a lock. And he just kind of laughed and said, that's not even going to be my top pick. He likes his quality for Brad Cox. And, John kind of talked me into it a little bit. I think this is a horse I'm going to have to play, which is kind of why I alluded to the fact that maybe I got to go a little shorter in that Juvenile Fillies turf, because I got to throw in Essential Quality for Brad Cox, who hasn't never done anything wrong and won the Breeders' Futurity here at Keeneland over this track, which I said earlier is a very big factor. So, yeah, I mean, I think those are the big 2 for me at this point. Tough Luck Bob with Classier. I mean, who, a maiden, they don't do well off just a maiden special weight win and then right into the Breeders' Cup. But, Tough Luck Bob can do it sometimes. He can break trends that seem impossible to break, like winning the Kentucky Derby with a horse that didn't start as a 2-year-old. So he's just naturally a very good trainer. So that's one.
Well,
oh man!
Before listening to John White, Essential Quality was actually my top pick here, so I felt very happy to hear that. Jared, did you agree on Essential Quality, or are you still sticking with Jackie's?
Well, no. Listen, whenever Essential Quality won that race, I thought, wow, because when a good-looking horse goes and does what he did that day, you're like, it kind of gets you, okay, that horse might be pretty decent. And so since that race, I thought that horse was a possible play here. Jackie's Warrior just looked too good. But then when John mentioned as well, I was like, yeah, I'm with Halterman. Like, I'm going to have to play more than just Jackie because I'm not going to get beat by Essential Quality. I think those are the 2 for me as well. But it's hard to, when he's got, I mean, there's no way any other trainer, if Classier's in this race, you're like, whatever. But you could totally see Classier winning this race, because now I will ask you guys this. I think this is a kind of devil's advocate question, and we'll talk more Baffert horses for Saturday. But do you think, is there a situation that you could just fade all Bafferts both days, because of this going on? Like, if let's say he is using some help, he just completely doesn't do any of it. All these horses back off of their previous performances, and they're fade against all both 2 days.
So our boys at Real Dynasty did a poll on Twitter asking, what are you going to do with the Baffert horses going into the Breeders' Cup? And as of right now, 35% answered use them all, 33% answered use some of them, 17% said toss them all, and 15% said don't play the race at all if he's got a horse in it. So I thought that's kind of an interesting take on. I mean, it's a very small sample size, but still, these are hardcore racing fans that are probably voting in that. So, and they're fans that will vote, that will bet the Breeders' Cup. So it's a decent sample. And you're right, you have the opportunity to toss them all or play them all, and that's I really, in all honesty, that's probably the only 2 answers that are good, because when you get in the situation of I'll play some and not other, I don't know if that's going to work. I think you're going to have to make the tough decision of I'm going to add my bank or build up my bankroll just a little bit more so I can play them all, or just toss them.
Yeah, I voted in that and I said use some because in my mind, none of these recent positive tests for Hard Luck Bob have swayed me. If I liked a horse going into it, I'm going to like the horse now. I agreed with John Gunther, who bred Justify, when he said, you just look at the PPs and you try and figure it out off of that. That's all you can do. And it sucks that sometimes that's the position we're still in 2020, but I don't know. It didn't sway me. Jared, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, personally, like I'm not gonna, to me, it's only positive. Just like Bob Baffert's test. That it's if Classer's in this race, he's got a very good chance to win. I'll just leave it at that.
That's a good way to move on to Saturday's races. We'll start things off looking at the Filly and Mare Sprint. 11 total pre-entries for this one. Frank's Rockette is the only one who made this a second preference because she's aiming for the Sprint to face the boys. We'll get to that race in a little bit. With this race, there have been 0 gate-to-wire winners in the 13 runnings. Favorites have only won 3 of those. And guess who the top 2 favorites are? The front-running Gamine at 2-1 from Bob Baffert and Serengeti Empress at 9-2. This seems like the great spot to play horses that love to come from off the pace. It seems like that's where all the 3 of us are all lockstep on there. Aaron, who's your pick right now?
Yeah, and again, you got another tough luck Bob horse, and really tough luck Gamine too. My goodness, 2 accidental tests for her. I mean, that is just terrible. But anyway,
I hate to see it.
Hey, don't blame the horse, all right?
Well, no, I'm not blaming anybody. I just think these accidents are just horrible for the game. But, with Gamine and Serengeti Empress both entered in the race, wow. I mean, how can this pace not fall apart is how you look at it. It's really quite unbelievable, the stat that you read there about front runners not winning this race. And I can remember when Unique Bella was entered in the when was that? That was at Del Mar, 2017, I believe. Mm-hmm. And everybody thought, well, this is a lock of the Breeders' Cup, and that horse quit so fast. It was unbelievable, just shocking. Bell's the One is the horse I have on top right now, and just because of the pace scenarios you talked about. And we saw it last time out at Churchill Downs, right? Serengeti blazed, and Bell's the One comes up and nips her at the wire. If you think we're going to have even more pace here, then that's a horse that really looks good at this moment. So Bell's the One. I'm really interested in a big long shot. Sally's Curlin. That's another horse that comes from way out of it. I think 7 furlongs, definitely Sally's Curlin's going to be a big price. Let's try to blow up the tote board with this one. It's early on the Saturday card. So, let's try to have a little fun with this race. That's the approach I'm taking with it.
Jared, you and I have been in the same boat where if we don't play Serengeti Empress in a multi-race wager, that's when we get beat. So even though you know the stats as well as anyone because you compiled them for us, are you going to use Serengeti Empress just defensively in your pick 4s?
I mean, here's the thing. I'll let everyone know because it'll be on the wagering guide. If I'm using this horse in my multis, then that's a good indication for everyone else just to throw her out. Because if I use her, she won't win. I think you have to. I mean, I know it's one of your favorite, type of horses as well, Magic. But she's one of my favorite horses running right now, just because I love the way she just throws it down every single time. Listen, I hope that Bob Baffert, his horses are able to run for this race, pure and simple. I want to see Gamine and Serengeti Empress light the track on fire on Saturday. I mean, that to me. Not just that. I mean, you got Venetian Harbor, who's quick, who's coming out of a race. I mean, she's obviously not that level, but there's a lot of speed. Frank's Rockette has got speed. I mean, this race in itself is so intriguing from a standpoint. And then you also have to think everyone likes Bell's the One right now because of the last time. Plus, compounding the fact that we're going to see another crazy, intense speed situation. And I'm afraid that, I mean, I don't want to play Bell's the One at a low price. Like I think so there's a situation where you could see Gamine sit off. If there's one horse that's going to go, it's Serengeti Empress. Like there's no doubt in your mind. She's going. Like we know from her past, if she's winning a race, she's going to the lead. So I think Gamine's situation, she has to sit off of it a little bit. And so if I think she might be a little bit of a value here if everyone kind of goes against her, considering everything that's going on from the Bob Baffert standpoint, plus the fact that everyone's going to assume that the speed is going to just completely melt down.
I'll say this. I think one of three things are going to happen, and I'm going to ultimately make my picks based on which one I finally decide. I think Gamin's going to sit a perfect trip and just fly right by Serengeti Empress. Or I think Serengeti Empress will run Gamin into the ground and she will drop anchor real fast on the turn because maybe she's a little bit of a phony horse and she'll get exposed by Serengeti Empress, finally facing a horse in a one-turn race with true speed that can really press and really make you run. I think that's possible. And I think the third scenario is they both wear each other out, and it's not Bell's the One, but it's some other horse that comes up and wins. Because I'm with Jared. Bell's the One is becoming too much of a wise guy's horse. Those horses never win. Maybe you use Bell's the One defensively, but in the end, am I really going to write down on that piece of paper that I'm picking Bell's the One to win when I think she might be 4-1, or going to bet that horse when I think she might be 4-1? Probably not. So I probably need to think of another scenario.
But we even talk about it, but you also have Venetian Harbor in there, who's known for either trying to go straight to the lead and take them all the way, or try and hound Gamin a little bit. It didn't work out for her last time, but plenty of speed here. Speaking of speed, gentlemen, the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint might just be the fastest race in the world. This is pretty much, think, quarter horses on turf with the way this goes. 22 total pre-entries. 2 of them made this their second preference. Trainer Peter Miller has won the last 3 with Stormy Liberal in 2017-2018. Last year with the Mare Belvoir Bay. This year he's bringing both the Filly Bulletproof One and Texas Wedge. Favorites win this race just south of 40%. And Leinster right now is currently trading as the 9-2 favorite in this race. Jared, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, honestly, this was the toughest race for me as far as compiling the trends. There's just a whole lot, not a lot to go off of, other than the fact, like you mentioned, with Peter Miller winning this 3 years in a row. It's tough. The favorites win this race at just south of 40%, which is nothing too dramatic. And I think it takes a really good horse to go gate to wire, but it is possible here. Got Stormy to me if she runs in this race, which I know that we don't know if she will for sure or not, but if Got Stormy runs, she's going to be tough. I still stand by that. But yeah, it's almost one of those things that this is the race that you have. This is, what is this? The race, the second Breeders' Cup race of the day, race 5 on the program. You've got to find a way to get past this race, because it's honestly, this is probably the one, like you said, it's a bunch of quarter horses on the turf, and what's harder than handicapping that shit? So you've got to find an angle here and just run with it, and then hope it pans out. I don't think there's necessarily a particular angle to lean on here. Just go with it. I really had the hardest time coming up with anything here.
Magic, do you still have those odds trading overseas right now for this race?
I can pull them up real quick if I don't have them, but I'll pull them up real quick.
Pull them up and tell me what in premise what he's trading at right now. That's one that I'm very interested in. And while you're doing that, I'll talk about him a little bit and why. This is a horse I've been high on for a long time. He kind of fell off form, but this year he's come back and looked really good in his races. And, should have had a stakes win at Saratoga and got disqualified. Came back, though, won. He's won it here at Keeneland before as well. I just really like him, premise. Do you have his odds?
I do. He's right now, he and Alexandra, the Mare, are trading at 6-1 second choice.
So 6 to 8 to 1 is kind of what I had in mind as far as, okay, that might be worth a bet. I don't think, if he's 3-4 to 1, he still may win, but I don't know if that's value you really want as far as playing a win bet. But I really like him. And, Magic, a horse you've talked to me about maybe 100 times in the last couple of weeks, Bulletproof One. Like, you really love Bulletproof One. Peter Miller, that's a horse. Peter Miller wins this thing with long shots and favorites. So that's probably one we're going to have to look at pretty hard as well. Texas Wedge is kind of a hard knocking turf sprinter. I play many times this year. I played him. So we'll see. But kind of what Jared said, this is a little bit of a mess every year. It's really hard to handicap it every year. I'm very thankful they put it early in the card so it doesn't mess with the late sequences.
What were the odds on Got Stormy?
Got Stormy right now is 7-1.
What about Bulletproof One?
Bulletproof One, 16-1.
See, I mean, if Got Stormy is anywhere near that kind of price, I mean, how do you guys feel about her running here?
Well, so she wasn't even cross-entered anywhere else. So if she
So-
goes in the Breeders' Cup, it's going to be this race.
So what do you feel about her running here though in this race? Like, I mean, obviously the fact that this is where they've chosen, right? It's Got Stormy. She's probably the classiest horse in the bunch. Hard not to pick her, right? Or how to use her anyways.
I mean, her trainer, Mark Cassidy, I think is the only person on the planet who never gave up on her all year long.
know.
She had excuse for her. And then he said, well, let's try sprinting. And she's looked great doing it. But this is a different class of field. I don't know. I think the odds will dictate whether or not I use her at least close to the top. Aaron, what about you?
I'll say a couple things about her and about Mark Cassidy. It's one of the better training jobs, actually the best training job of the year in my opinion, because this horse was done and he literally found a new thing for her to do, and she's doing it really, really well. I love it because I love Got Stormy, and it's like, oh, I hate when they fall off form and they're just done and they disappear. Nope, she's back winning again. I absolutely think it's the right spot. I think it's the only spot where she can win here at the Breeders' Cup, or maybe even hit the board. I just think the mile is really, really tough, and I don't think she's that caliber of horse anymore. But look, I think she's got a shot here, and the thing I really loved about her turf sprints, she can come from off the pace. So she can kind of let them go out, and I think she'll come with the run. She likes Keeneland. I think she's got a shot. I think Magic really hit it right on the head. What will she be bet? And Jared, I think you kind of hit on the head maybe in a negative light as far as what she'll be bet. No doubt you're going to look at those past performances and think, well, hell, she can win this race. Yeah, she's really good. I'm fearful she's going to be like 4-1, and that's kind of – maybe you guys can see the trend that I've been talking about. I don't want 3 to 4-1 on anybody. Give me 6, 8, 10, 12 to 1. Let's be that horse.
No, I'm with you.
We can. This is probably going to be her last start in that race, and another Mark Cassidy horse owned by the same gentleman, Gary Barber, is making his final start in the Breeders' Cup Big Ass Fans Dirt Mile. Talking, of course, about War of Will, the 2019 Preakness Stakes winner. This is a very interesting field. 23 total pre-entries, 7 made it their second preference. You have 2 coming from Japan and trainer Hideyuki Mori. Favorites have won 2 of the past 13 runnings here. Golden Sense and Liam's Map did it earlier this decade. Complexity right now is the 4-1 favorite overseas, but this is a very diverse group, I guess. You have sprinters like Vekoma, who are stretching out to go 2 turns possibly. You have Sharp Samurai, who is a turfer, going to go back to the dirt. Owendale, a horse that I know Aaron's loved, is here. Pirates Punch. Nashville from Steve Asmussen, if he doesn't make it in the sprint, could show up here. This is a crazy, crazy, crazy race here. Aaron, what the hell do you think about the dirt mile?
Well, it's definitely one of the more competitive dirt miles we've seen in a while. And I think it's going to have a really big, nice field. And sometimes we don't see that with this dirt mile. You know, sometimes we'll see a little bit shorter. It just kind of in my opinion, what has happened this year, the Classic is really good. There's a lot of really good horses. So when you take an art collector, it's kind of on the fence on which one to go. It's much easier to make the decision this year, dirt mile. Think back to last year's Classic. I think Art Collector, if he would have been a 3-year-old last year, he would be in the Classic because that race was hot garbage. It was one of the worst Breeders' Cup races. But this year, it's the best race of the Breeders' Cup. So I think, in turn, the dirt mile is going to get, a bigger field. There's a ton of ways to go. I wouldn't talk anybody off any horse in here because it's just wide open. I kind of like Rushy a little bit. I think that's a horse that's kind of flying under the radar that might be a decent price. I think Complexity deserves to be the favorite, but I think you could probably try to beat him. Art Collector, Bodie Express. I'm not playing Bodie Express, just kidding. But Knicks Go. How about Knicks Go?
Knicks Go.
Look at his 2 races this year, and look at his races at Keeneland, and tell me he can win. He can win. So
Brad Cox, baby. I mean,
yep. And I think you're going to have to use him a lot, almost in every race he enters. And so, yeah, another race you're going to have to go deep. We're not giving people a lot of help at this point in terms of these Saturday Breeders' Cup races. It's hard to have a definitive opinion in these first 3 that we've talked about.
Yeah, dude, it's I mean, you talk, like last year, Omaha Beach was upset, came to the race, heavy favorite. Catalina Cruiser, still, that's one of those. I don't know if I'll ever be over that one, but favorites have not done well, especially heavy favorites in recent years. I mean, Omaha Beach seemed like almost a lock. And so did Catalina Cruiser, for that matter. And it's just so bad. You know what? Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze for me is scary. He's going to need to be a prize, right? I refuse it. Like McPeak, I don't play Dale Romans short. I just don't. But if he's a price, maybe, because that last race was really impressive, and it was at Keeneland, which I think is important. I'm going to look for like those middle level horses, anywhere between like 8 to 12 to 1, those horses that could definitely run and win here. I think, like you kind of touched on, Halterman, there's so many of those, Nick's Go or an Owendale or Rushy, like where you're like, they could win. Like why couldn't they win? They've shown flashes in the past that are capable of winning this race. And a horse like Art Collector, who was just awful last time out. I mean, I know it was Preakness, but still, I think you could make a case for a lot of these in here.
I'll make a case for one that you might not be thinking of, and you might think I'm a West Coast homer, but watch out for Sharp Samurai. If he ends up making it into the field here, this is a horse who was a very proven graded stakes winner on turf, went to the dirt for the Pacific Classic and ran a pretty decent second behind Maximum Security. I put him back in the turf last time out in the City of Hope Mile, ran a very strong second to Mo Forza, who would be my pick in the Breeders' Cup Mile if he hadn't gotten hurt. So Sharp Samurai plus, look who's riding. We know that we don't know many jockeys right now, but Irad Ortiz Jr. is already confirmed to ride Sharp Samurai. This is a guy who jumped aboard Spun to Run, who a lot of people weren't talking about in last year's Dirt Mile, and he ran them off their feet, including Omaha Beach, which Jared mentioned. So we're all making good cases, and I think you nailed it on the head that you can make a case for just about any horse in here. I guess the easier question is Aaron, if there's one horse that you absolutely don't want to touch in here, who would that be?
Ooh, that's a good question. I really don't have one at this moment. True Timber, I guess. Maybe I don't know what that horse.
Bodie Express. This is until they hold the Breeders' Cup at Gulfstream Park West or the old Calder. I say Bodie Express is a chuck on every single race.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. Bodie Express. Hey, this is team. I don't think can win. Midnight Sands. I don't think can win. So there's a few, but there's not many.
I'll give you a hot take.
Okay.
War of Will.
You don't want him?
No, I'll toss him.
No.
He's going to take money, so you'll definitely get value out of whatever horse you pick on top.
I don't understand them running him here. I don't. That poor horse.
You mean here instead of the turf mile?
Every time that horse gets going on a surface that he likes, they switch him to the other one. I don't understand what the hell they're doing. So yeah, I mean, he's a horse that's going to take a lot. Now listen, he could win, but he's going to take a ton of money, and he's going to be too low of a price for me to be interested in playing him here when I think half the field at least has a better shot to win than he does.
Aaron, did you agree?
I could get behind the last comment for sure. Half the field probably has a better shot than he does. And well, actually, now that I think about it, I can get behind pretty much everything he said. Like, he's just a weird horse. Here's the deal about this horse, though. Every time
as soon as you doubt him, yep, I know.
He wins.
I know. So I just put him in the winner's circle, I'm sure.
Well, I think the moral of the story is I think this is one you're gonna have to go pretty deep in because he's just that kind.
It would be very annoying to get knocked out of whatever sequence when we see the betting menu, to get knocked out by War of Will. That would be hard to handle. So I think if you can play him, you do. But as far as a win bet, I'm going to try to beat him for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll take a look at the Maker's Mark Filly and Mare turf. You have 18 total pre-entries, the only second preference being Tarnawa, who's looking at going to the turf instead. This is a race where there's a pretty reliable trend. The past 8 winners were either trained by either Chad Brown or someone in Europe. Chad Brown has won 4 of the past 8 races. He has 4 pre-entered here, including Sister Charlie, who won this race in 2018. Her half sister, my sister Nat, is also pre-entered. That's 2017 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf winner Rushing Fall, and Nay Lady Nay, a surprise and pre-entry here. Jared, your thoughts on this race?
Dude, okay, I'm gonna be like, this is year in and year out. This is one of my favorite Breeders' Cup races every year. It's just there's always good horses in these races, up and coming or established, Chad Brown turf, runners. It's always a good, solid race to watch. As far as good performances go. And this year, I mean, look at this. Like you just mentioned, those Chad Browns. Mare is in here as well. Starship Jubilee, who's awesome. I mean, it's a fun Civil Union. It's really Tarnaw is a good horse. I mean, there's a lot in here. So, I think Rushing Fall obviously has got to be one of the classier horses running on either day, right? She has just been awesome this year, but it's like we keep, what is her distance and where could she beat Sister Charlie? I mean, are we gonna toss Sister Charlie? I mean, that seems insane. I mean, her stablemate Uni finally looked more like herself last time out. Sister Charlie still hasn't, but they've been steadfast on running her in the Breeders' Cup. And so, you're like, you definitely don't want to be beat by her. But at the same time, I'm having a hard time, going with her. So, to me, I'm still on Rushing Fall. She's been so good, but watch out for Mean Mary. That horse, I think she's pretty damn good.
Aaron, Jared brings up a great point, and something that's going to be debated, I think, ad nauseum until the race is actually held, is what the hell do we do with Sister Charlie? Because this is a horse that this year has not looked anything like herself. She just doesn't seem to have that late closing kick to get up and win like we used to see from her. And yet Chad Brown has remained steadfast that she is going to go to the Breeders' Cup. She's going to be fine. He skipped the Diana for this race to train her up, and it worked 2 years ago. But what do you do with Sister Charlie?
Boy, it's a big problem, isn't it? Because here's what we know. She's better than Rushing Fall at her best, right? So if each horse runs their best race, Sister Charlie's going to win. And Sister Charlie is probably going to be double or even triple the price of Rushing Fall. Ooh, what a problem for a bettor, right? So it's going to be awfully enticing. And she's also one of my favorite horses of all time, which doesn't help either. But listen, she hasn't been very good, that's just the easiest way to put it. She's let horses beat her that just shouldn't. And that's just the fact of this year. But listen, hopefully he's getting her ready for one more big shot. And if anybody can do it, it's him. I will talk about Rushing Fall for a little bit. Another one of my favorite horses, So it's kind of like seeing your two kids going out and racing against each other when you got Rushing Fall and Sister Charlie, two horses that all three of us have enjoyed for years now. Okay, so here's my worry about Rushing Fall. She won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile as a 2-year-old, skipped it at 3 and skipped it at 4. And the reason why they skipped it is because this race is too long for her. So what has changed now as a 5-year-old where now she's going to get it? I think she can get it, but I think if there's another horse that likes it more than her and has some ability, she's going to get caught in the final yards. And I think a big key to this Breeders' Cup is finding that horse that can do that. I am not going to be foolish and leave her off tickets, but I'm also not going real short here because I'm looking specifically at Euros. Who's the one that's going to mow them down late? Who's the one that's going to have that run left? And when we get into that final furlong, Rushing Fall still might be going, but starting to slow a little bit. And even though that class is going to take her to the wire, is there going to be somebody that can catch her, or who is that somebody? We know it's Sister Charlie, but we also know she's not in form. So is there another one that's similar to Sister Charlie that's going to be motoring late? That's the key to this race.
I want to correct myself real quick. I misspoke. I said that she skipped the Diana. She skipped the Flower Bowl 2 years ago. She went to it last year and won, and then ended up getting third in the Filly and Mare Turf. So just a quick correction on myself.
Don't you think this is by the way, sorry, but don't you think this is a race that, like, I know Tarnaw is first preference is the turf, but I mean, she could win this one. I feel like big time.
That would be the horse I would pick if she's in the race for sure, because I think she fits everything I just said.
I know, exactly.
Yeah.
Sister Charlie is okay. So and listen, I'm totally with you guys when it comes to her. She's frustrating as hell, and I don't know what to do with her here. But let me make a case for her to run well on the Breeders' Cup.
Sure.
She's obviously been working towards this race since August. You could tell from Chad Brown, he wanted to get her the hell out of Saratoga as fast as he could. As far as her not liking that track, the last time she was at Keeneland, she was awesome. And that was, of course, 2018. So it's been a minute. But you haven't seen, like, if so, just say Saratoga was like, she just couldn't get a handle of that track. That's all we've seen of her this year. That's all we have to go off of is those two races. But the other factor is the Santa Anita race, the Breeders' Cup. She didn't have that punch either, But if there was a horse that could run down Rushing Fall, it's her, in her glory years. And sometimes that's what's tricky about these older mares. When they're done, and they don't give you that pop anymore. And so that's the fear. I mean, I hate to keep saying it, but I feel like we're at a situation with her where, like, you don't want to get beat by her, but do you really want to play her to win? Especially, it'll be interesting to see how she's bet.
Well, and to yes, and you, Jared, the Santa Anita races that we saw, especially on the turf, a lot of the European horses and horses that like even just a little given their ground really ran flat all weekend at Santa Anita because of just how hard the turf course was and tends to be in California. So if you were looking to, and you see this is why her odds are going to be pretty enticing because you keep having to make excuses for her for this race. But if you believe them, if you believe in Chad Brown, that the guy knows what the hell he's doing, it's really hard to not play Sister Charlie, even defensively.
I mean, that year at Keeneland, she won. The last time she was at Keeneland was the Jeannie Wiley, and she just absolutely just ran down 4-Star Crook easily. And 4-Star Crook was good at that point. She was a very good horse at that point of the year. So, I mean, we know she's capable of. So maybe she gets on a softer track and gets more kind of what she's used to. And I mean, who knows? I mean, this could probably is the last time we'll see her. You would think. So maybe that's just it. They try to get one big race out of her. And, the fact that he's running her here, I mean, Chad Brown, like, he's got like 1,000 horses that he could run in any race at any given time, it feels like. And so it's like, if he's running her here, she's obviously she's fit. It's just a matter of getting that form back.
Let's take a look at one of my favorite races of the entire Breeders' Cup weekend, the Breeders' Cup Sprint Race. You always have some very, very, very fast horses. 17 total pre-entries, only one of them with a second preference. Among those 17, 8 of them are 3-year-olds. Only 2 of the past 22 winners went gate to wire. Steve Asmussen has a trio of those 3-year-olds that I mentioned, Nashville, Yopon, who are both front runners. Echo Town likes to come from off. Fun fact about Lasting Legacy, who's going to try and make the race here. He was claimed for $40,000 out of his last race, which was at Keeneland. They had this race in mind, and if they can draw in, that would be an interesting claim straight into the Breeders' Cup. Hell, if he gets the win, I think that's your story of the weekend. Aaron, I know that you love the Asmussen runners here. What do you make of it all?
Yeah, I do like Asmussen here in the sprint. Of course, he won this race last year with Matoli. He does not have a Matoli for this race, so let's get that out of the way. But Yopon and Nashville obviously are 2 horses that can win. Now, Nashville may not make the race. You and I were talking about this off air, Magic. I'll give you credit for pointing it out to me. Hey, he doesn't have the earnings, and if they oversubscribe or they overdraw, which it looks like they're going to, as far as the pre-entries go, you never know what happens. But as of now, he's on the outside looking in, so that's kind of a storyline. Another story, the biggest storyline is Vekoma, and can Vekoma, win off of not running since July 4th and then come in here and win a Breeders' Cup race. I think that's going to be the big key to the thing, and he's the best horse, so that, it just, is he fit? And then a horse that I just have to point out, guys, Whitmore again in the sprint. I mean, this is just a machine. This is like the 20th sprint he's been in, I think, for the Breeders' Cup. He's won
1-0 of them, by the way.
Yeah, but he's around. He's always around. He's been close at times. He's been very close. So here he is again, and we'll see what he can do. But I'm just glad that we get to see him. And I guess one other thing, Diamond Oops was a horse we had no idea, and we never have any idea where that horse is going to run or what surface. His first preference comes out, and it is right here in the sprint. So it looks like Diamond Oops is pointing towards this race. I think he's got a shot, right?
I think it was Vinconi's what is his daughter. I think she made a quote after Diamond Hoops had won last time, and they were asking, which direction, turf or dirt. She's like, well, we might just flip a coin. You never know with him. They'll just make a decision. So, I mean, that's a cool horse to have, right? That you can just flip a coin. I'm going to mention a horse that Alterman, I figured you might mention, CZ Rocket. That's your boy. I mean, you just keep picking another trainer who just is magical, with what his craft, has mastered his craft. And it's Peter Miller, who all his horses won since running and claiming races and just seemingly just can't be beat. And I would sure hate to get beat by this horse in the Breeders' Cup, because he certainly is the kind of horse where you'd be like, son of a bitch, really? Like, that horse won again, and that would happen here. Vekoma, like, he's the one to beat. There's zero doubt about that. It's just like, the layoff issue. Like, Vekoma was unbelievably good in the Met Mile. And if he can be that good in the Met Mile, coming back to 6 furlongs, then he's going to be tough. But what's he going to be like off the bench? Well, so this is one of those that you feel like you could go thin, but at the same time, the one thing I will say about this race, throw out the sprinters or throw out the speed. Like you mentioned on the trends, that's a pretty powerful trend to me. And when you see a horse like Chancelot who still can't get it done, now granted, he got ran down by Matoli, but just speed doesn't hold here for whatever reason. I just don't. I'm gonna stand by that and try to get a horse, to come off the pace.
The simple fact that Chancelot on a speed favoring Santa Anita course that looked like Dubai a couple of years ago, the fact that he couldn't get it done on the front end tells me that's a very, very strong trend to pay attention to. Aaron?
I was going to say, just on with Lucky Pete and CZ Rocket, we've really enjoyed riding old Lucky Pete to the winner's circle during this time. I mean, he's just done a tremendous job. A true horseman, there's no question.
What is it? Lucky Pete and Bad Luck Bob? What'd you call him?
Tough Luck Bob.
Tough Luck Bob, and yeah, those are like. Is that what you have them in your phone? Like when you call them, talk to them.
Yeah. Well, we're in a group text actually too.
Like, hey guys, heard it again. Bad luck, buddy.
Yeah. So Tough Luck Bob and Lucky Pete, and
contamination, man.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So. Gotta love those guys, though. I do. I sure do. I keep them close to.
What's the group text chain called? Like, do you have a name for it?
Oh, well, I can't say that over the air. There's some stuff you have to leave to the imagination, and if our listeners want to,
is it Juice is Loose?
What's that?
Is it called Juice is Loose?
No, but I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say. There's things I can't give away. But maybe if you buy the guide, I'll put it in the guide. What it is, but yeah, he works wonders. So we'll see what happens. Hey, one more real quick. I think we should probably mention, back on a serious note, Frank's Rocket, the filly, first preference going to be the sprint. So we're going to see what looks to be anyway a filly against the boys here in the sprint. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, there is history of girls being the boys in this race, but you have to go all the way back to the early 90s, late 80s to see that happen, because the Filly and Mare Sprint was created to try and give a little bit more of a even playing field. But Bill Mott has been steadfast that this is the race he was looking at, despite the Filly and Mare Sprint. And you would think facing the straight females would be a little easier for her, but for him it was the distance. He likes that this is 6 furlongs, whereas the Filly and Mare Sprint is going to be 7 furlongs. Jared, are you surprised by that? Do you like the move for Frank's Rocket? What do you think?
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I'm not gonna lie. I did not expect to see her here. I like her though, and that makes it tough, right? Because I think she's really damn good. I did not expect to see her here, so yeah, that kind of changes how I'm gonna have to approach this race. Do you guys think, like, how heavy do you think Vekoma will be bet? Like, what is he trading at right now?
Give me 1 second. I'll pull that up for you.
Because he'll be interesting. Because, I mean, had he been running 2 more races since his, the Met Mile and won both of them, let's say, he's clearly one of the shorter prices of the Breeders' Cup.
He is currently trading at 3-1 as the favorite for the sprint.
See, that's tough. Yeah, that's tough to do. I feel like this is, you talk about a year of just crazy shit show, 2020. It could be one of those Breeders' Cups that you just see a lot of weird results, like prices and whatnot of horses that make sense, but still like opportunities to beat, and I can live with myself not playing Vekoma at 3-1.
Magic, just real quick, what are the Asmussen 3-year-olds trading at, if you still have it up?
Yep, Yopon is the 9-2 second choice. Nashville is 8.5 to 1. Echo Town is 20 to 1, and that's the horse that I'm the most intrigued about because, as we said, speed quits early. Echo Town, Steve Asmussen put him here in the Phoenix Stakes against older horses last time out, and he put Yopon against straight 3-year-olds in the Chick Lang. They raced on this. I thought that was a very interesting move for him, and I thought it kind of tipped his hand that he thought that Echo Town might have a better chance against the older horses here in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, though Yopon did win against older horses earlier in the year. But I thought that was a big sign.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, and you, again, I'll give you credit. You pointed out before about the running style, and Echo Town does have that running style that Jared has talked about with the trends. And listen, when you have that much data, it really becomes a legit trend. It's not 2 or 3 times. It's time after time that's how it happens. So.
All right, let's move on to the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile, also known as just the Breeders' Cup Mile. This is the FanDuel Mile presented by the PDJF. 18 total pre-entries. 2 of them made this their second preference. You have 7 Europeans pre-entered, including Circus Maximus from Aidan O'Brien. He also has Lope E. Fernandez and Order of Australia set to come over here, but it might not be worth it for him because 7 of the last 9 winners were all American-based, including the 2019 champ Uni, who finally seemed to return to form last time out, repeats in the First Lady Stakes. The winner of this race has actually repeated 5 times. So if you're looking for a trend of repeat winners doing well, this is a good race for you. Wise Dan did it. Goldakova actually won this race 3 times. Lure and Miesk also repeated back-to-back years. Jared, I'll go back to you. What are your thoughts on this field?
Yeah, you know what? We're talking about Sister Charlie earlier and her stablemate Uni. A little bit different thought, but still the same. She was not good all year, and then she finally got back a little bit to her form. And so, like, now it's to a different regard. But you're still sitting here thinking, do you trust her? Is she back, or was that just a weird performance, or maybe that was her big last performance? I think like you said, a lot of repeat winners, and of course, Wise Dan did it in 2012 and 2013. I mean, she likes Keeneland. She obviously she showed that, and I think that's the way she ran last time out. I mean, she's going to deserve to be the one to beat here, and I think she will be awful tough. I'm gonna kind of lean on Chad Brown in this race, to be honest with you. Digital Age is a horse that we got kind of tipped on last time out, that as far as being like this was the whole plan, and it did not look great last time. But here they are running them here, so. I think you got to take that into account. Will be a price, no doubt. And then Chad Brown's got Raging Bull. I mean, so to me, at a mile, like, I'm playing a Chad Brown, I think, here.
I'm with you. Chad Brown, Brad Cox, and maybe a Euro after I really study those. That's where I'm leaning as well. I think factor this, cutting back to a mile. I don't love that, but he's still a really, really consistent horse. And Bo Recall has proven that she can beat really nice horses as well. So she's going to be in the mix. But look, I mean, how about Uni last time out? We talked about her and Sister Charlie kind of in the same light, towards in the summer, basically. And then Uni comes and says, no, I can still win. And I can still win over this course that we're running at today. And by the way, I am the 2019 champion. So I'm kind of a bad bitch, and you're going to have to beat me. I freaking love Uni. So I think that's exciting. But listen,
she likes Keeneland, and that's a huge factor going into this race, I think.
Yep, I really think her and Digital Age are the 2 I like. Raging Bull, it's just too disappointing too many times. And my long shot he's my guy. I love to hate him. March to the Arch, man. always on that horse. So that's what I'm looking at as well. And I'm also obviously looking forward to going over these European horses as well.
I'm surprised neither of you mentioned Ivar, who was a horse going into the Shadwell Turf Mile Stakes that I made a note and even said on the Magic Mike show. I said, all right, this horse, I don't think he wins here, but I'm going to see how he does, because I think next time out he could run a real big race. I was one race late, or one race behind on that one, because he wins the Shadwell Turf Mile with a big effort, and it came over this course in distance. So I think that is something to play into him. But listening to you guys, it sounds like a lot of people are looking at Chad Brown, maybe some other Europeans, maybe Brad Cox. So if I can get another nice price on Ivar, boy, you bet I'm going to take it.
Bring him on.
Well, he didn't beat anybody that you guys have talked about, so we at least have that going for it. We'll look at the Longines Distaff, 11 total pre-entries here. The only second preference is Harvey's Little Goyle, who's going to try and make it into the Filly Mare Turf. Swiss Skydiver has this as her first preference, not the Classic. That's the big headlining thing here. Kenny McPeak seemingly wanting to take on Monomoy Girl instead of Tis the Law. And I'm telling you, man, he just keeps ducking Tis the Law every chance he gets. Jared, what were your first thoughts when you saw that Swiss Skydiver was going to be here for her first preference and not the Classic?
Absolutely, just the most dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. I think. I mean, this is so stupid. What do you get by going to this race over the Classic? I mean, to me, she's an automatic play against. No doubt. I'm playing against her. Monomoy Girl is going to win this race. I think it's easy. I mean, why are you running her here? There's nothing to gain winning this race.
Aaron, do you share his opinion on that?
I do, but I don't think I'm as upset about it.
I was surprised.
I want to see greatness. I want to see greatness, and I want to see a horse like that's got an opportunity for greatness. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, she has the opportunity to be horse of the year, and to be one of the better 3-year-old fillies, not in recent history, ever, by winning the Classic. And they're just like, no, we're gonna run the Distaff. I just don't get it. I mean, yeah, and I don't own the horse. I mean, winning a $2 million race, a Grade 1 Breeders' Cup race, I mean, it's not like it'd be awful, but I think I would rather try against in the Classic. And to me, like kind of like Magic kind of joked about, but has some kind of validation, I guess. I mean, but we talked with John about it too, and he kind of thought they would lean towards the Classic because they obviously have not been afraid to go against the boys twice this year. So that's why I was kind of leaning on that. But hey, I mean, I don't know. I think it's going to help the price on Monomoy Girl. So I think that in itself is good.
I'll say this about Swiss Skydiver. They've entered her in like her last 6 races. Say I haven't agreed with what they've entered her. I never can predict where they're going to go. I never really agree where they're going to go. It's been working out fine for them. So I'll just go with them, But I'm with Jared. I wanted to see it too. I mean, we both been pretty vocal about it. So if she's not there and we move on, I do agree also with Jared that the price is going to be better for Monomoy Girl, and it just makes it a little bit better race because the rest of these horses I do not like. Like CC can go to hell. Dunbar Road looked bad last time out. Harvest Moon coming on. Maybe a long shot play there. Horologist does not seem like a Breeders' Cup type. Lady Kate, give me a break. I mean, always can't. If Magic and Always Candy raced, I'm not sure Always Candy would win the race. I mean, it might be close. Point of Honor is a horse I've been waiting on for years. It just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So I just ran him down, and Valiance, who's coming on at least. But
I just feel like it's going to be a low price.
Yeah, but when you list those horses and then you say Swiss Skydiver and Monomoy Girl, it seems like they're going to be 5 lengths better than the rest of them. So take your pick there.
But I mean, look at the last 13 years. I mean, the average winner has been around 4-1. Zenyatta, Royal Delta a couple times, Beholder, Untappable, Monomoy Girl. I mean, it just kind of feels like Swiss Skydiver or a Monomoy Girl again. Mm-hmm. Is what fits there, and past that, I try to beating her. I mean, if you're going to try to beat them, I think these horses in here are just going to be it's going to have to be. I guess if you're going to try to beat her, it's what Dunbar Road or something. I mean, to me, that's the only horse that I could maybe try to beat him with. But yeah, to me, it's I might single Monomoy Girl.
Yeah. Do we know who's going to ride Swiss Skydiver yet? Has there been any indication of who that might be?
It sounds like Kenny's going to stick with Robbie Alvarado. Kenny sounds like a guy who loves loyalty, and he got loyalty from Robbie Alvarado, and Robbie listened to everything Kenny told him. So I would assume that that's who he sticks with here.
Yeah, I would agree that that's probably going to be, and he deserves it for sure. He won the Preakness honor. I mean, so he definitely deserves to stay on board. And if we know anything, we know if jockeys listen to you one time, doesn't mean they're going to listen to you twice. Robbie.
Don't get him started again.
Yeah, but the old veteran could get another Breeders' Cup win here with Swiss Skydiver. I think she's got – I'm not as heavy on Monomoy Girl as Jared. I'm obviously going to play her, but I think Swiss Skydiver can beat her. I don't think it's impossible. So – and I'm not saying that you do think it's impossible, Jared. But I think it's 60% Monomoy, 40% Swiss Skydiver.
Too low.
We'll take a look at the Breeders' Cup Longines Turf. 2 races left to go here. And boy, if you want to play the Europeans, man, this is the race where you come running. They've won 9 of the last 12. And of the 11 total pre-entries that we have, 5 of them are coming over from Europe, including 2 from Aidan O'Brien. And I think the big thing that everyone's going to really love is that Magical is coming over. It seemed like a big question mark up until just a couple of days ago whether or not she would be making the trip over. But she's going to have to deal with another very talented filly in Tarnawa, who is making this as her first preference. John Gosden, who's the famous trainer of Enable and several other amazing Hall of Fame horses. He's bringing Lord North over here to see if he can win his second Breeders' Cup in the last 3 years. As far as the Americans go, it's not looking great. You've got United, who was second to Bricks and Mortar last year. But beyond that, do you want to trust Arklow or Channel Maker or Red King? I'm really not sure what you want to do with this race. I know that Mike Maker had 3 horses that he was expected to send here, and he's been scared off and is not bringing any of them anymore. Aaron, your first thoughts on the turf?
Well, we only have 9 horses that this is the first preference for, which is staggering. Usually this is a full-ass field. Only 9, and I think it does just speak to the weakness that we've had all year in the United States with turf horses. They just haven't been very good. They just haven't. And our best, most consistent one has kind of been Zulu Alpha, and he's not here. And that's one of the Maker horses that you were referring to. So, Arklow, no, not really. Channel Maker, I don't really want to play Channel Maker. Red King, no. United is interesting to me. I think that's our one hope. If the race was in Southern California, I'd feel even better about it. One of the truly, and I'm being honest in this point, good, solid, noble trainers in the game right now. We need more of those type of guys with United there. So, but I'm going European. I haven't decided yet where, for the final decision. There's a lot of good ones here. So for Europeans anyway.
Jared, it sounds like Aaron just wants to take the 5 that are pre-entered, box them up, call them home, and move on. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not that simple, but it's pretty simple. Listen, we kind of talked a little bit about this on past shows, and it was like, okay, obviously Euros dominate this race, but do we have, and Halterman touched on this earlier, it's like, do we have the same standard of Euros that we're coming over? But we also don't have any standard of Americans that are in this race. So all of a sudden, even if the Euros are a little bit lower, you still have a kind of an overcast as far as the talent goes on the Euro side. Magical and Lord North, maybe Tarnawa. I don't love her in this spot over the Filly Mare, but still. But Magical coming over is a pretty good indication when they made that last minute decision to run her here. Now, I will say this, she's just one of those that likes to hang. She likes to get second, no matter where. So that makes it a little dicey, but surely she can come and win here. But to me, Lord North, Magical, Tornado, I might just play those 3, honestly, and box those up in this race.
Feels a little like a Royal Ascot race in the United States,
Listen, I guess maybe if you want to put an American in there, put like United seems too easy as far as a horse that I like. Maybe it's Channel Maker, because Channel Maker will piss you off and beat you.
I agree. But mine is Arklow, because I think Arklow is mad. So it's like pick 3 Euros and then throw Arklow, and you're pick 3 Euros and throw Channel Maker. I think that strategy's fine, because I think you're right. United does seem like, okay, that's pretty obvious. So, and even if United gets in there with some of these Euros, this isn't going to pay much, especially in a 9-horse field. And again, we say 9 horses. That's not official, but that's what we're expecting. So, yeah, no,
and imagine playing. Let's say you play the late pick 4, which is the mile, the distaff, the turf, the classic. So the mile we talked about, obviously, like you can maybe go thin there with Uni and maybe at 1 or 2 others. So maybe you go 3 deep there. The distaff, you might single Monomoy. At worst, you play the 2. And then you get to the turf. And then we know the classic, which we'll talk about next, we're at least 5, horses that you'll want to play in the Classic. And so there's got to be a point to where I think you can go thin, deep in the Classic.
Yep. I think you can go something like 3 by 2 by 5 by 5. And then maybe you get lucky and Arklow wins somehow, in this race. And it's like, holy shit, he won. I can't believe it. I'm alive to this shit, now. So, yeah. But it's definitely got a chance to chalk out, though, if we don't get a price here. And there's really no logical reason to say we're going to get a price. But, hey, if you play Brad Cox all Breeders' Cup and then you get to the last race he has one in it and he beats you, you're probably going to be mad.
I was just going to bring that up. We couldn't laud Brad Cox at the top and not talk about him at least throwing Arklow in here with the seems that adding the blinkers at least woke him up for one race there. Final race, the big one, the one everyone really cares about, the $6 million Breeders' Cup Longines Classic. And you touched on this earlier that last year's edition, not that great, but I am so excited for specifically this race. 11 total pre-entries. Swiss Skydiver has as a second preference. But even if 10 of these horses run here, this is a great looking field. Favorites have only won this race 2 of the past 10. The average win price, Jared, you know this, it's close to 5-1. Let's look at the overseas favorites right now. Improbable is 4-1. Tis the Law is 9-2. Maximum Security is 5-1. Authentic is 6-1. So all those horses are right there around that 5-1 benchmark. Obviously, something's going to have to give here. But one other interesting fact, and I love this, Jared, and I'll throw it to you. 5 of the past 10 winners of the Longines Classic lost their final prep before the Classic. We even saw that last year with Vino Rosso, who was disqualified and placed second. So what do you end up thinking about this race, Jared?
Yeah, dude, that was, this is typically just like this staff class wins this race. It happens all the time. It's just too good of a race and too good of horses running in these races. But so you have to look for angles, and that 5 of the last 10 is very interesting to me. When you look at the like of Blame and American Pharoah losing their races coming into the Classic, and that includes Authentic and Maximum Security and Tis the Law and Tom's Diatal all running in their losing in their last races, which, by the way, all legit contenders here, and so, and you also have to, we talked a lot about this, on previous shows. I mean, Authentic, Improbable, Maximum Security, Swiss Skydiver, screw her, she's out. Tis the Law and Tom's Diatal, 5 horses that have Horse of the Year on the line. Now, I guess if one of those were to get beat here, say Global Campaign or something wins this race and Swiss Skydiver wins the distaff, then she's still in the ball game for Horse of the Year. But like John talked about last week, when you duck the best spot, sometimes that comes back to haunt you. So we'll see. But yeah, as far as this race goes, I'm looking at that. I mean, I think Maximum Security here. Whoever I can get like at that 5 to 6, 7-1 range out of Maximum Security, out of Tom's Diatal, out of Tis the Law, those are the ones I'm looking to play here.
Well, and for me, it's all about Higher Power and Tacitus, right? I mean, these are the 2 horses you got to look at. Just kidding.
I was like, where are you going with this?
Yeah. So, okay. So Tough Luck Bob's got 3 in here, which automatically makes it a tough situation, and it's really tricky because what kind of Maximum Security are we going to get? I think that's where it starts with. Because Jared, and you said it best, and I think maybe Magic, you said it too, class wins this race. Well, Maximum Security is the most classy horse in the race. I don't think that's debatable. What's debatable is what kind of form does he have? He was waxed at Santa Anita, and his 2 races at Del Mar under Tough Luck Bob weren't great. They were wins, but they were also against bad horses. I'm not one to discount wins. At the same time, he needed to, prove he could beat a decent horse. And his stablemate Improbable kicked his ass last time. So, but here's where it gets tricky. He's supposedly, these California media people, I think one of them fainted the other day after the win.
No workout.
I don't know. They've just blown up Twitter with how good this horse looks, and he certainly does. So he's a problem. Improbable is always a problem, no matter where he's at, because who knows what he's going to do. He's had an incredible 2020. And then you got Authentic, who just is another problem. So Tough Luck Bob's a problem, and then he's got 3 horses that are a problem. So it really makes the race kind of a mess. For me, you know what? I am looking at Tiz the Law pretty heavily here. I really believe this is a horse. He reminds me an awful lot of American Pharoah coming into this race in 2015, which, by the way, was also at Keeneland. American Pharoah, of course, wins the Triple Crown, goes and wins the Haskell, gets beat in the Travers, and that was a shock. There's no question. A bigger shock even than Tiz the Law, but still a shock. Tiz the Law was pretty shocking, especially when he gets head-to-head with Tough Luck Bob's horse. He can't get by. That was tough. But with Tiz the Law, same thing. They decided after that loss, we're training up to the race. Same way with American Pharoah. They trained up to the race. I think Tiz the Law is going to run that Travers-like race where he won and we all gushed for days and days about him. And if he gets back to that race, I don't think they can beat him. I don't know if there's enough juice in the world that can beat him. Uncle Chuck couldn't do it. We know that. So I think Tiz the Law is going to be awfully tough in here if he gets back to that race. And the wild card is Tom Zata. I mean, I think we all at some point this year have said, wow, that is one damn good racehorse. And then he went to his nose in the Whitney, and we haven't seen him since. And I hate that, but I heard an interview with Al Stahl. He said, hey, this horse, we had a prep in mind, but the schedule just got thrown off because of COVID. They moved the Fayette from 5 weeks to 4 weeks, and he's an older horse. We didn't want to do that. So we just trained up, and he's doing great. So I trust the Cajun Al Stahl. He won this race with Blame back in 2010. Beat a pretty nice horse named Zenyatta. So I think Tom Zata, while he's up against it in a very tough race, he's not facing Zenyatta here. So we'll see. I think he's got a good shot, but those are the two I'm leaning towards at this moment.
Boy, making the morning line for this race is going to be insanely tough.
Yeah.
I had a couple trends for you that aren't in the 14 trends just because, we can't do 10 trends for each race. 12 of the 27 race winners were 3-year-olds, including all 3 times that Bob Baffert won this in 2014 with Bayern, 2015 with American Pharoah, 2016 with Arrogate. So if you're looking for a trend that might help you out in this race, I think that points to Tiz the Law, which you mentioned. It points to your Kentucky Derby winner, Authentic, if he gets the same kind of trip. And if Tiz the Law maybe doesn't like the dirt at Keeneland, like he seems to hate the Churchill Downs dirt, that's a way to go as well. But this is a race where you want to look for value, and right around that 5, 6, 8-1 spot, which Tom Zaytad is trading at about 8-1 right now. That seems to be the sweet spot here where it'll make you feel like you got some value because of the odds and yet still be a logical horse. Were there any horses here that are pure just chucks? I know you guys don't like higher power. I know Tacitus has burned way too many people's money. Any other horses that you're thinking about, just as soon as you see it, just say, nope, not playing you?
I mean, maybe by my standards jumps into the group we just talked about as far as if I'm going, 5, 6 deep here, but past that, I mean, I'll let Global Campaign, I'll let Higher Power, I'll let Tacitus, Title Ready. They can all beat me in this race. I think you stick with those top tier horses because that's, when I look at Maximum Security, I really want to play Maximum Security because I think you're going to get a price. But then you start to think, it's like, man, not only is he not typically faced horses like this, he's facing a bunch of horses in this race that he doesn't usually have to face. And we saw him probably just smoke them. I think this race is way too deep to go past any of these top tier horses.
I think you're right. And I think a big thing about this race that is kind of a mystery is the pace, because Authentic and Maximum Security probably are going to be out there, but they're not going to go head to head, right? Like the Baffert horses did in the Preakness, or will they? And then what happens then? I think the lead is just going to be kind of odd, and I think the pace will be odd, and that's why I want that horse that's kind of going to sit not too far behind, but off of them. And I think Tiz the Law sits a good trip. As far as horses to throw out, by my standards, is one I hate to throw out, but I just kind of think he's not quite good enough. But I have a ton of respect for him. Global Campaign, same boat. Higher Power, I hate. I can't believe they're bringing him over here. It's like that is a waste of money. Improbable, I wouldn't throw out, obviously. Tacitus, throw him out. I don't care. I mean, come on. Title Ready, throw him out. The rest of them, I can see winning.
I really hope Tiz the Law is right around I mean, what do you 4 or 5 to 1? 5 to 1? You think 5 to 1's fair? Tiz the law?
Yeah. To me, I'm in a really good spot because I like him to win, and I think he's going to get that price, like you just said, Jared. And Tom Zata, I think, is the best horse talent-wise in the race. I think he might be like 8 to 1, 10 to 1, 12 to 1. I mean, what is he right now, Magic? Do you have any idea as far as overseas?
Yeah, he's 8 to 1. It seems like the Bafferts are 3 of the 4 favorites, along with Tiz the Law. And I've said this on the Magic Mike Show. I think Tom Zeta is going to keep being forgotten about, or people are going to look at the form and see that big third where he was way behind Improbable. Forget the fact that he went to his nose, as you said. And I think if you're looking for pure value, I think you're going to get a lot of it with Tom.
I mean, when it comes to price standpoint, I'd rather play Tom over Authentic. I'd rather play Tom over Improbable. I'd rather play Tom over Maximum Security. Tiz the Law is the only other one that, as far as value goes, that I would debate between Tiz the Law and Tom Zata when it comes to value. Because when you're talking about value, we talked about this last week with John. I mean, but Tom Zata he will be the definition of value if he's 12 to 1 in this race.
Yeah, well, there's no question about it. And let's hope Tough Luck Bob takes a lot of money and Tom gets up there and can shock the world with a little 12 to 1. That would be great right now.
The best situation that any of us can sit in on Breeders' Cup Saturday is to be in this race, coming into this race with, say, a pick 5 live with all the horses we're mentioning. Because if you get here with those horses, with the thought of Tom Zata winning at 10 to 1, say, or whatever, Tiz the Law winning at 5 to 1 or whatever it is, I mean, you can't ask for a better situation.
That's the dream. That's the dream.
Okay, so like I know this is a pre-entry show, so we're not gonna give picks, but I'll just ask who's the horse of the year, and that'll kind of give me an idea of who's gonna win this race. Who's your horse of the year, you think? Who's gonna be horse of the year?
Who's going to end up being horse of the year? Not right now, but after the Breeders' Cup, you mean?
Yeah.
Tiz the Law.
Magic.
Ooh, I'll go with Tiz the Law too.
Certainly feels like Tiz the Law deserves it. Like it's just been a great year for him. He turns the tables. I think you can make the case like he got beat by Tough Luck Bob, Authentic, who cheated him in the Derby, and so yeah, it feels like that. But I definitely wouldn't it be amazing to see Tom Zata win this race, and after him being like absent all year, he somehow were to sneak in and win Horse of the Year after missing like half of it.
That would be amazing. And here's the other thing that's amazing. We're sitting here, we're going, yeah, it looks like Tiz the Law's got a shot to be Horse of the Year. If he loses, loses as far as Authentic finishes ahead of him in this race.
I know, right?
He's not even 3-year-old of the year. And that is just amazing to think that not only can it happen, it's 50-50 based on what we've seen,
Well, that's another thing that, you have to think about is there's multiple races in here going on. Even if Authentic and Tiz the Law, neither one of them win this race, there's still whoever finishes ahead of each other basically is going to try to lock up 3-year-old of the year, Yep. And so you better believe they're like instructing their jockeys, like, even if we're not going to win, you run his ass. Like you beat Authentic. If you're Tiz the Law, you're like, you beat that horse. Like they want to beat that horse bad here. I
legitimately know. I've heard from
exactly.
Authentic. So that's what makes the Classic fun in years like this, and why last year it sucked because nothing was on the line. And that happens sometimes with the Classic. But this year it's one of the better ones we've had because everything is on the line. It doesn't get any better or bigger than this race. You get the best horses all year. You got 3-year-old on the line and Horse of the Year on the line, and that's the 2 biggest awards we have in this sport. So yeah, it's gonna. Well, I guess Older Male is also on the line, obviously. So it's gonna be fun, guys, and yeah, let's just hope Higher Power doesn't win it because that would ruin the whole year.
That would just be the big cherry on top of the COVID 2020 Sunday for horse racing. Just put higher power in the winner's circle. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you for taking your time out to go over the pre-entries, give our instant reactions. We still have 9 days left until the Breeders' Cup World Championships. Hell, we still have the draw to go through. And guess what? We'll be back with our reaction to that one again. Make sure you go to racingnews.com. The Inside Track wagering guide to the Breeders' Cup is available for pre-sale. You can go pick up that 14 trends you need to know for the Breeders' Cup, available now for free. So go download that. Check out all of Jared's hard work. For Aaron Halterman and Jared Welch, you can follow them on Twitter at @racing_dudes. I am Curtis Kellaward. You can follow me at Curtis Kellaward. Gentlemen, this has been fun. We'll do this again in a few days, huh?
Yep. I think we found our new host to Blinkers Off.
That's right. Yeah. You did a great job, Magic. For people that don't know, Magic last hosted this show on Florida Derby Day when Maximum Security won. And he hosted it out of necessity, not so much he wanted to. So it was nice that he wanted to do it for the first time, but he did a good job of it.
The plan was for, as a normal, me normally, as I normally do, host it with Magic being on. And then he kind of talked to us and he's like, I'm going to need to host this.
Yeah.
It's easier to produce things on the back end if you're hosting, and then I can let the two experts that people actually want to hear talk. I can let you guys do your thing and handle all the BS on the side.
Well, done it. I think
that's why you hired me.
You found your perfect job. Yeah, that's why we hired you. Exactly.
Perfect. Well, good luck to everybody who's watching. We'll see you again for the reactions once the draws come out. Until then, good luck. We'll see you at racingnews.com.
RacingDudes.com for all of your needs. RacingDudes.com for all of your leads. RacingDudes.com for all of your bets. RacingDudes.com as good as it gets. RacingDudes.com for all of your needs. RacingDudes.com for all of your leads. RacingDudes.com for all of your bets. RacingDudes.com as good as